Okay, we are live tonight, baby. Halloween, but we got to connect Facebook and we will get things rocking and rolling here. Hope everybody's had a fun Halloween so far. I know it's kind of hard. Eric and I debated. Lance, bowed out. Eric and I debated whether or not to do a show tonight. And we thought, no, let's just do it. So here we are. Welcome in, everybody. This is the Dove Valley Deep Divers. I'm the fill-in host, Chad Jensen. With me, you know him, you love him, Erick Trickel. Eric, I know you like to do the Halloween thing, right? This is one of your favorite times of year, isn't it?
The wife is more into Halloween. I'm a more Christmas guy, but ever since, with a growing kid, we've been doing the family costumes, and that's kind of helped me be a little bit more enthused about Halloween lately. And this year we're all going as Sith Lords, so it's a Star Wars theme this year.
Star Wars.
Yeah.
Nice. I was just barely walking around my neighborhood with my 5-year-old Theo, 4-year-old. Why do I keep saying 5-year-old for some dumb reason? I mean, technically he's in his 5th year, but he's not 5 yet. But anyway, I was Thanos. He's Optimus Prime today. So rocking and rolling. Hope everyone's having a great day. Some shouts real quick, guys. David Youngkin's in the house. We're going to talk about some Broncos football. Let not your heart be troubled. What's going on, Stream Guy? Raj in the house. We'll get to your topics. Orange Crush. Hey, buddy. I want to invite you to become a dear member of the MHH community and become a member on YouTube, buddy. We need you. Ronk's in the house. What's going on, big dog? Great to see you. All right. So first things first, Eric, this is the traditional show, of course, in the football week where Dove Valley Deep Divers previews the coming game and kind of the matchups and the keys and all that. But first thing is I want to talk about is the injury report, because we all knew that Pat Surtain was going to be missing time. So he's, of course, ruled out. But along with him are Marvin Mims, Nate Adkins, and who's the PJ Locke. So of those three, does any of that worry you going into this Texans matchup on the road?
Well, I mean, whenever you lose the running defensive player of the year, it's always a concern, especially when you look at the Texans and the fact that they're getting their top 2 receivers back in Nico Collins and Christian Kirk. So that is a concern there. Missing Nate Adkins, that's going to mean more Adam Troutman, and he's been more of a liability for this offense as Adkins has really come on as that blocking tight end. So that's concerning, especially after we're seeing, a lot of signs of life in the running game over the last few weeks. PJ Locke, special teams, they've already been a struggling unit. That's where he's done well at typically. So that's a loss. And then Marvin Mims for that returning ability. Like all 4 of these injuries are a concern in different phases for this. But PS2 is obviously the most concerning loss.
Do you see Riley Moss? Zach and I were talking about this last night. A lot of people have kind of been framing this as, oh, okay, Chris Abrams-Draine steps in for Surtain, where it's more like Moss steps into Surtain's shoes on the left side. Abrams-Draine comes in on the boundary on the right side. Is that how you see it? And then also, where does Jahdae Barron fit in?
Yeah, the Broncos seem to like Jahdae Barron in that, that extra defensive back when they kind of go with four corners out there on the field, they like him in that role. And they seem to want to keep using him in that. And this is a good game to use him in that with how much the Texans like to spread them out and the fact they're missing their tight end, Dalton Schultz. I believe he's out for this game. I can't remember for sure.
He's questionable.
Oh, he's questionable. Okay. So especially if he is out, then they like to spread it out a little bit more using their plethora of receivers that they have in Kirk, Collins, Hutchinson, Higgins, Noel. Like they just want to spread it out. So I think we won't see Barron on the outside for this game just because of what the Houston Texans like to do. And the fact that they just seem to like Barron inside a little bit more. One thing I do have a concern about, it is more of Riley Moss stepping in for Surtain and then Abrams-Draine for Moss. We need to see Abrams-Draine play with less of a cushion on those receivers, especially against CJ Stroud, who's going to he'll take those easy completions all day, every day. So you don't want him given these 10, 15-yard cushions, especially when it's like 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, like we saw in that second half against the Cowboys. That to me is an much more significantly added concern with PS2 out, is this cushion that Abrams-Draine gives, which he did last year as well.
Hey, Papa Bear, it's great to see you on this Halloween. Appreciate the super chat. Thank you for being a member. Saying good evening, Broncos country. 13-4 plus 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 plus, and of course hashtag God bless the USA. Thank you, Papa Bear. It's awesome to have you. The support means the world. We also have Conga that's saying, hey, I could see Dalton Schultz having a career game if he plays. But then again, let's ponder this, Conga, and Eric, you can break this down. The Broncos defense, it was a marvel last week what they did, limiting the Cowboys, especially the passing game. And arguably their biggest achievement wasn't, the turnover, wasn't the turnovers, I guess. It wasn't the limiting to both Lamb and Pickens to under 100 yards receiving. Wasn't sacking the quarterback. It was 0 catches for their tight end, Ferguson, who's not only just their tight end in a top offense, but Eric, as we know, he was the leading tight end pass catcher in the NFL going into week 8. And how did they do that? Maybe Conga's not aware how they were able to take that away.
Yeah, they were able to do that because, and this is something that Nick and I, we've had this conversation behind the scenes a little bit. Brandon Jones hasn't been, the normal Brandon Jones we saw last year. And part of that seems to be that they're using him to help cover for the linebackers and coverage a little bit more, of giving, having Brandon Jones kind of be that safety outlet for them and providing more cover or more help for them instead of the corners, which has been the corners more on an island. And against the Dallas Cowboys, especially in the second half, that seems to be a lot of what they did. They continued to leave Riley Moss out on the island. They trusted Chris Abrams-Drain, and they just brought down mostly Jones, but every now and then Hufanga as to provide that help for them. And it worked. I mean, Jake Ferguson had 1 target, no catches. He was the best tight end, like the leading tight end in the NFL entering that game. They were able to, just eliminate him, and he was healthy. And Dalton Schultz isn't. He's coming back from an injury now due to the issues at receiver. Maybe Vance Joseph looks at it that maybe they can't provide that help from Brandon Jones and Hufanga as often, and that can open the door for Dalton Schultz with Alex Singleton and Dre Greenlaw being left on an island more. But all we can do is wait and see. And I think that getting Dre Greenlaw back for this game is also a added boost to helping keep Dalton Schultz, if he plays, limited in this one.
Jahdae Barron, how much do you expect to see him getting matched up on tight ends, whether it's Schultz or the next man up?
It's tough because he's only been playing about 15-ish snaps a game, give or take. And the Texans, with Schultz, they've kind of gone away. I mean, they still use tight end, but they've kind of gone away with how frequently they are proceeding to go with more wide receivers instead of and that added tight end. So it's tough. I think we could see him still probably be in that 15 to 20 range. But but that can change too. If Chris Abrams-Drain gets picked on early and is really struggling, maybe they decide to pull the trigger and put Barron out there more frequently. So it's a tough one, but I think that we'll see him at the very least in the same role that he's kind of been in over the past, 5-6 weeks.
So like last week, for example, guys, there's basically about 75 defensive snaps would have represented 100%. So Riley Moss played 72 snaps. That represented 97% of the defensive snaps. And as Eric mentioned, you find Barron, he played 20%. So the conception that he was the guy constantly following around the tight end and shutting him down, he played a part, but he wasn't the sole reason, as you're learning here tonight. Phil, what's going on, my brother in Tucson, checking in on Halloween. Good evening, Chad and Eric. Happy Halloween back at you, big dog. I sure hope, that is, Adam Troutman has the best game of his life. LOL, Buckham, MHH for life, Broncos for life. Eric, you study each and every game, not just live, but, of course, the grades and watching the film and all that. So you have a much more unique view on really just kind of how bad Troutman has been in the assigned role they've given him. Break down his outlook. And honestly, it's Friday, so we'll know more on this subject I'm about to mention tomorrow. But do you see Mercedes Lewis being a factor this week, or do you think he'll need a week on the vine to kind of learn stuff before they start trying to use him?
I sure hope that they activate him and use him, because I have no faith in Adam Troutman as a blocker. And we started to see serious declines with his play in that area last year, and it's just gotten worse. He's one of the big issues he's having is he's not protecting his inside. He's really being what I like to call setting heavy on the outside, and it's just giving the quicker path in. And one thing that a lot of offensive line coaches and blocking coaches like to coach is you don't set heavy outside, because that is a longer path to the quarterback or the ball carrier. Inside's always faster. Protect that more than the outside. Obviously, you want to protect both, and Troutman just hasn't been doing it. And over the past few weeks, it's just been rough watching him just consistently whiff. There's been multiple plays where he's not reading. I don't know if he's reading the blocking, the defense right, or if it's something with the blocking and what he's being asked to do, but he's been, letting guys run by him as he's going blocking somebody who's way down the road that should be that second or third guy that, you try to pancake the first one, then you make that second or third block. There's just a lot of issues for it. And one of the big plays that really stand out was, I think it was against the New York Jets, and they kind of threw a quick under route to RJ Harvey, and they're kind of setting up like a downfield screen kind of. And I think Pat Bryant and Adam Troutman were the downfield blockers, and Troutman just over pursued, got out of position, and the guy just went right by him and was able to make a play, limiting what RJ Harvey was to do. So you got to get better than that. And he brought in Mercedes Lewis because he is still a blocker. The long brother, the long that was with the Bears, I can't remember which one it was. The offensive lineman, he tweeted out some clips of Mercedes Lewis from last year with the Bills. And man, it made me envious, because Denver has not had a blocking tight end like that in years. And the Chicago Bears were getting that out of a 40-year-old Mercedes Lewis.
Kyle, right?
Oh.
I'm pretty sure it was Kyle.
So hopefully they can get that level out of him. And, blocking concepts, it can take some time to it, but he's been in the NFL for 100 years at this point. He should be able to pick it up pretty quickly and adapt, and at least have the basics down enough in the offense to not, run the wrong plays.
I mean, I'm looking at the wide shot here of Harvey's big 40-yard touchdown against the Cowboys. And Troutman, I wish I could show this to you guys live, but we'd get dinged. But, he's on the strong side, right tackle. And at the snap, he fires off and is supposed to block the linebacker. And he kind of gets in his way, but he's actually really lucky that the linebacker just took a terrible angle, or else Harvey gets tackled for about a 9-yard gain. And if you look at it, he does just enough to kind of like get in the guy's way. He sure as hell, though, Eric, ain't blocking him. You know what I mean? Like, There is a difference between getting lucky and kind of being in a guy's way and straight up like owning someone in a block, like on that same play you see Quinn Miners do. Now, look, on to multiple guys on one play. You don't expect necessarily to see your number 2 tight end pancaking fools left and right like your all-pro right guard. But nevertheless, it's a pretty good, even on a great play for the offense overall, it's actually a pretty accurate snapshot of he's just kind of this fly around guy. He's not really getting it done. So we'll see. And it's kind of interesting that Mercedes Lewis, coach, Mercedes Lewis, even though it's spelled with an M-A-R, when he was, a young player in the league, Eric, he was a big time pass catcher. And it's kind of crazy 20 years now into his career that he's known for his blocking. So anyway, Phil, thank you, big dog. Let's hope Troutman, if they rely on him, can be reliable, but we have our doubts. What's up, Albert? Happy Halloween, y'all. This is going to be hopefully a nightmare for Houston. CJ Stroud should be shivering from fear. I love it, dude. Let's hope you're right. He also says here, Dre Greenlaw's presence will be huge, and he might want to get some revenge for his old team. Yeah, I mean, him coming back, obviously they're pretty excited. Eric, I think a lot of people, how good he was, albeit in a limited role, whatever it was, 21 snaps against the Giants. I think a lot of people kind of missed, even those who maybe read your grades or other things, how good Greenlaw was in his one game as a Bronco, because it was kind of it was overshadowed by the breaking news the next morning that he was being suspended.
Yeah, I mean, that with the 2021 snaps, whatever it was, he had an impact on, 15, 16, 17, a major positive impact. There was I think it was the second snap of the game was probably the worst snap he had, where he was just a little bit late getting out into his zone coverage, and it led to a, decent catch for the Giants tight end, I believe. Might have been been Scatterbo out of the backfield, I can't remember. But that was the worst play that we got out of him, and that was just one of the first 2 snaps that he played. Yep. And it just turned out to be so good for him. And hopefully now that he has had that game under his belt, even though is coming off suspension, he has that experience on the field where, coming back, maybe there might be not necessarily jitters, but that a little bit of butterflies in the stomach with the new team and all that.
Yeah.
That hopefully that's all taken care of and he can come out and just make that major impact right off the bat.
Down under on Facebook, we got Glenn Ashley checking in. What's going on, big dog? Good morning, Eric, Chad, and Broncos country. Because for him, of course, it's no longer Halloween. I assume it's Halloween is the same date for you guys, isn't it? I don't know. It's actually a blind spot for me. I'm kind of ignorant of that. I don't know. But, obviously Halloween ties back to all the old, the old ways, the pre-Christian ways and all that stuff. But anyway, so in other words, I assume it's probably a common holiday in all the Western countries, but I don't know for sure. Happy Halloween, he says, nevertheless, to you all and your children too. If we can get Lewis and Pat Bryant, either side of our packages will be absolutely insane. Hashtag MHH for life. That's right. Glenn, you exemplify the fact that Broncos country is not a geographic location. It is a state of being. So, yeah, we'll see. I'm not convinced they're going to play him this first game. I mean, after all, Eric, what was it? Are we coming up on the third? This will be the third game that JT Gray, who they signed to help them on special teams, could be inactive. I don't know that for sure. We'll find out for, I guess, 100% Sunday when the inactives list comes out. But I kind of have a feeling Lewis won't be playing this week. I hope I'm wrong. But, there's a lot to kind of get down in a short amount of time to be out there and not screw things up, So he might need a little time. I don't know. What do you think, Eric?
I mean, I would like to see it, but I'm not entirely sure we do. I think the one thing that he has going for him is that the Broncos have two tight ends, right? It's Evan Ingram and it's Adam Troutman, and that's it. Unless they want to call it Patrick Murtaugh off the practice squad, who, if I remember correctly, is the international player exemption on the practice squad.
Yes.
And I can't remember for sure what the rules are, but if they call him up, he doesn't qualify for that anymore, or something to that. I can't remember exactly how it works. And then Caleb Lohner, who, unless he's made drastic improvements since the preseason, he's still not ready to be out there on the field. So we might see Lewis active just out of pure necessity because of how weak they are at the tight end position. Whereas with JT Gray, they weren't down to like 2-3 safeties. They still had pretty much everyone out there available for it. So they're able to bring him in a little bit more slowly to get him more adapted. But either way, I wouldn't be surprised with Lewis if he's called up or not, just because of, one side you have the necessity for it, and on the other side he officially joined the team on Wednesday. So either way.
So nothing I'm reading here would preclude him from being an elevation, Murtaugh that is, just because he's an international player. But that's with a very quick researching Google search whilst we're actually on camera and talking. So we'll see. We'll see, guys. Hey, we got Denver Luke in the hizzy. What's going on, big dog? Good afternoon. Sorry, Chad, I haven't made any edits. Well, get crack-a-lacking, dude. Let's go. No, but it's all good. It's great to see you. Denver Luke makes really cool Instagram, like Bronco video edits. And I've got a couple of guys that work for me that do that. That's their whole job. So like when you see the reels and the shorts and the pod clips and stuff in vertical format on our Instagram, our Facebook, our YouTube, whatever, it's that stuff. And so he makes those kind of clips and they're really cool. And I reached out to him. I was like, dude, make some for MHH. Let's go. But one of these days, I'm sure, Denver Luke, he says, work's been crazy. Also, I need more storage. No worries, buddy. Whenever it works out. Pete, how you doing, bro? On Facebook, Peter Middleton checking in. Welcome on DVD chat. Thank you, bud. Appreciate it. Okay, let's see. Joe Anthony wants to know any news or insights on whether the Broncos are going to be active before the trade deadline. I have some serious doubts that they will be, Eric, but it's kind of weird. The injury bug can dictate a lot of things. And I mean, a week ago, we were celebrating and frankly marveling that halfway through the season, every player on the 53-man roster that was active was a full participant in the last practice of last week going into the Cowboys game. Fast forward 1 week only, pardon me, and you've got multiple players, 4 of which have already been ruled out of the game. So I don't know how much you might think, Eric, that could kind of tweak things relative to their trade plans. But what's your answer here for Joe?
I mean, prior to last game, there was a lot of chatter going around about the Broncos looking at tight ends on the market, that they really want to upgrade that inline blocker spot and, have that counter punch with Evan Ingram, with Nate Atkins being that more of that hybrid fullback, H-back type player. And with Atkins out and seeing a lot more Troutman, that could push them a little bit more to that. If they do make a move, that's where I would expect it. We did get a nugget from Adam Schefter, I believe, on Monday, talking about the Broncos have been exploring the wide receiver trade market.
Yeah.
And the big name going around there was Rashid Shaheed from the New Orleans Saints, who's an explosive playmaker type that can really come in and help, because he does well against man coverage, and that's where the Broncos have struggled. Troy Franklin, who's been that emerging wide receiver this year, he only has 8 catches for 40 yards against man coverage this season. Cortland Sutton is their only go-to guy against man coverage at the wide receiver position. Evan Ingram has been a help there as well, but Shaheed can help out there. I know a lot of people are hyped up about Jalen Waddle, which contract-wise, that's doable, which you have to keep in mind with the Broncos, as they sit with like $5.6 million in salary cap space, and it's a lot harder to work around it during the regular season. Jeremy Fowler made it clear that Cesar Ruiz of the Saints has been made available. That is one that I don't see happening for a few reasons, contract being one of them. But that wouldn't be if Denver could work it out, that wouldn't be a bad one, because that can give them a future option at center while solving the issues at guard right now with Ben Powers out. So still a lot of chatter. If they do anything, I think it would be for a tight end, but I'm leaning that they don't make any moves, and I don't think they trade anybody away.
Agreed. I don't think they'll be active, but I've been wrong before. Don Mars, thank you for being a member, big dog. Says, I know Pat Surtain is out, but I'm not really nervous about how the defense will play. I'm worried about the offense showing up and continuing the good play of the last 5 quarters. And boy, has it been good play. I mean, what, 33 plus 44? I mean, that's a lot of points in 5 quarters, kind of almost making up for just how bad the preceding 2 games were. Or let's just say the preceding 7 quarters. So, yeah, but that's the key here, Dom. I mean, you don't really have to look. Pat Surtain, Vance Joseph talks about it quite regularly. He is the straw that stirs the drink on defense. However, this is an extremely deep unit, and I would argue, Eric, that their shining unit on defense is not their secondary, as great as it is. It's actually their defensive front. And when you have a defensive front that's that good at getting after the passer, you could put Jensen out there. I'll be out there running after Dalton Schultz, and I'll look like an all-pro because the quarterback already got sacked. You know what I mean? I'm obviously being facetious here, Eric, but what are your thoughts here for Dom?
Yeah, I mean, it's concerning, because running defensive player year, again, losing the straw that serves the drink on the defense obviously hurts. But Denver still basically pitched not quite a shutout, but pretty darn close to it against one of the best offenses in the NFL, in the Dallas Cowboys, last week without him, and with him missing most of the game, over half the game. So hopefully you can carry that forward, and going into this game, knowing who your starters are going to be in setting, having to insert that guy and adjust on the fly, you actually can come in with a plan. Hopefully that translates, especially with the pass rush, which that has been an outstanding unit this year. And even going back to last year, they have like almost twice as many sacks since the start of 2024, since the team that has a second most sacks.
Yep.
Absolutely ridiculous. Nick Benito against Arianta Ursary. That is an advantage that the Broncos should be able to capitalize on, especially with how well Vance Joseph has done with the simulated pressures to get Nick Benito and Jonathan Cooper on those one-on-ones on the outside.
Yep.
I am very curious what John Franklin Myers does, because it's weird. I've never seen this before. I've seen teams rotate offensive linemen. I've never seen it work. And the Texans are rotating their left guard. It's almost a 50-50 split between Lincoln Tomlinson and Juice Scruggs. And they started doing that 2 weeks ago, and that's when their offenses started to emerge. It's actually working for them. So I'm really curious to see what John Franklin Myers can do, and if he can make the Texans pay for rotating their guards.
That is kind of interesting. Really quick here, let me grab this from String Guy. Hopefully this game against a good Texans defense will tell us whether the offense, and especially the run game, is catching up with the defense. So we kind of missed the forest for the trees in Dom's previous point, because it kind of triggered me going on a rant about how good the defense is, even without Surtain, and you just kind of piggybacked on that. But obviously what people are more concerned about here, Eric, isn't so much the absence of Surtain. It's, hey, man, has this offensive, not resurgence, because resurgence means it had been good, then got bad, and became good again. Explosion. We'll just say this offensive renaissance. Let's call it that. Okay. We're splitting hairs here, but either way, is it here to stay? Was it real? You had a desperate fourth quarter. That was amazing. It hardly ever happens in the NFL. That kind of thing happens. I mean, decades past, right? Like, it's insane. The Cowboys literally suck on defense, and the Broncos did what an ostensibly good offense is supposed to do and make a defense that sucks look like a defense that sucks. But what about this Texans defense, Eric? Because they don't suck. They're good. They're one of the best. They got a couple holes in the boat that the Broncos couldn't have a chance at kind of poking at and exploiting and kicking open. But everyone wants to see if this offensive thing is for real. Bo Nix, is it real? The run game, what say you?
Yeah, I mean, and we can kind of look back to week 4, week 5 of the season. The Broncos offense, they looked good against the Bengals defense. And then the next week, they kind of came out struggling for 3 quarters against the Eagles. So I get the concern there. And when you look at how bad the Dallas Cowboys are, it just makes it an even bigger concern. When you look at some of the early plays that the Broncos had, some of those big plays, the RJ Harvey touchdown, the J.K. Dobbins 21-yard rumble, when you watch those plays and break them down, there were some major miscues on the Dallas Cowboys defense that played a large part in the, being such a successful play for the offense. However, when you get to the second half, you stop seeing a lot of those miscues on the Dallas Cowboys defense. They did make some adjustments to make things a little bit easier, but we saw it be a lot more that the Broncos were making big plays because the Broncos were making them happen. It wasn't they were capitalizing off of bad plays, capitalizing off of miscues or whatever it is at the Cowboys defense. They were going out there and executing at a high level and making those plays happen. That gives me some confidence that they really did start to put things together and put the pieces in place and that they can build off of this. I don't think it's going to be it's not going to be anywhere as good as the Cowboys defense unless they come out and shock the world. I don't think anybody's expecting another 44-point performance against, what is widely considered the best defense in the NFL in the Texans. But if they can get, 50% of the offensive output, not necessarily points, but just the offensive output against this Texans defense, that is a very major positive for this offense going forward and should inspire a lot of confidence from fans in this offense and the team and this offense in themselves.
Phil, we're going to get your second comment here in just 1 second, brother. The Lady D's jumping in off the top rope, a dear member, a superstar, and a dear friend. She's part of the family here. So thank you. Great to see you on this Halloween Eve, Lady D. She says, evening all. We definitely need the offense to be on in order to win. I believe the defense will be fine, even with PS2 out. Benito and Cooper need to show up big for this game. I believe the team has this. Go Broncos. Both guys, if I'm not mistaken, Cooper got a couple. He got, I think, 1.5 against the Giants. But both of them, if memory serves, were shut out last week against the Cowboys in the sack department. Now, you did a good job in your film breakdown, Eric, of showing how much of a game wrecker Benito still was, even though he didn't get some of the stats. Both of the Broncos sacks on the Cowboys went to different players, but they were forced by Nick Benito. So is this the game you see Benito kind of get back onto the stat sheet, you think, Eric?
Yeah, he was so close to the first sack on Dak Prescott. He just couldn't quite bring enough force to bring him down. And CJ Stroud, he's another tough one that can be brought down. Just has a little bit of similarities to Dak Prescott in that regards. But it's another advantage for him. Arianta Ursary, going back, I was reading through my scouting report on him this week. He's one of those guys that he loves to set heavy on the outside. And despite him setting heavy on the outside, he still has a tendency to lose around the arch, which is to speed and explosiveness, which is obviously where Benito absolutely thrives on. And this is a game where hopefully we haven't seen it yet, but I keep hoping and dreaming that Nick Benito adds an inside counter to his game because he could be ridiculously good if he could. With how often team or offensive tackles set heavy outside, if he can, spend this next offseason working with DeMarcus Ware on that inside counter spin move that he had, man, Benito could easily have, 15 plus sacks next season. And I think if he had an inside counter this year, we'd probably be talking about him with 15 plus sacks already, because there's been a lot of opportunities where for that inside counter for him to capitalize. Haven't seen it yet. So hopefully we see something against the Arianta Ursary with how he plays, because that inside is so consistently open. And it's also an opportunity for Benito to, still make an impact without getting those sacks by pressing the arch and exploiting around it and creating that lane for Talanoa Hufanga on a safety blitz, or Jaquan McMillan on that corner blitz, or one of the linebackers coming down. It just creates so many doors. So for this defense to do well. So maybe he doesn't get the sacks, but I would be surprised if Benito doesn't have another huge impact against the Texans.
Also, Lady D throwing down 5 MHH memberships, gifting them to folks in the chat. So thank you for that, Lady D. You're the best. And I'm sure the folks that were just gifted those memberships are grateful. And hopefully we can keep them around after their 30 days. So thank you, my friend. We got Phil again saying, looking at the last 4 games for the Texans, they played 2 tough defenses. In my opinion, lost both. I think this looks good for us because of the way our defense is playing. Yeah, defense, man. I mean, honestly, the only game that I can be too much of a critic over is they still won the game thanks to the, insane fourth quarter of Bo Nix, but they were super leaky in that Giants game, Eric. And, we were there for the meet and greet, and that was all fun. And it was what a day that was. But just a lot of weird, atypical, uncharacteristic errors, guys wide open, and also weird outlier stuff like balls getting tipped and then they go for 60-yard touchdowns. Like, when's the last time we saw that happen in Bronco land? I mean, you got to go all the way back to Brandon Stokely, 2009 game winner against the Bengals. You remember that? The Josh McDaniels era?
Yeah.
So just weird outlier stuff. But there was also just too many blown things like that. Whatever it was, 35-yard touchdown right up the gut, untouched. I mean, the Giants did a good job setting that up throughout the game, but nevertheless, they got to tighten that, that aspect up. They did against the Cowboys. I think that it's going to be pretty tough going for CJ Stroud, even with Surtain out. I think that they're going to mostly handle the Texans. And it's also worth mentioning, Nico Collins coming back from concussion. Christian Kirk is dealing with a hamstring. He'll play, but you got to wonder how much that's affecting him. I can't tell you how involved Braxton Berrios is in the offense, but he's been dinged up. And then we've already touched on early in this episode, Schultz plus Woody Marks has been dinged up too, for what it's worth. So your thoughts here for Phil?
Yeah, I mean, looking over the Texans schedule, obviously they started 0-3, but then they played the Tennessee Titans, Baltimore Ravens, and San Francisco 49ers in 3 of their last 4. Well, Tennessee Titans, they are absolutely a terrible team on both sides of the ball. Baltimore Ravens defense has not been what it is, although over the last 2 weeks they've started to show kind of an emergence ever since they traded for Alohi Gilman. That's kind of, brought about a change with their defense. And then the 49ers, they are so beat up and so incapable of getting after the quarterback. Their secondary is still decent, but the linebackers and the defensive line and edge room is absolutely atrocious. They were only able to get pressure on like 22% of dropback on CJ Stroud. And CJ Stroud is really questionable as a quarterback when he's facing pressure. The one team that they faced, the Seattle Seahawks, they did a great job against the Texans. They put up 27 points on this defense, which is the most that they've given up on the season. So there is a opening for them because his offense, they haven't faced a lot of great defenses on the season as a whole. And when they have, this offense has really struggled. And even without Patrick Surtain, I don't think this is a great defense without him, but it is still a very good defense without him.
There you have it. Okay, let's grab this from Pete. Broncos at least have found a steady replacement for Powers. How good has Alex Palczewski been? I mean, the Broncos have been effusive in their praise for Palczewski. And has it been the 2 starts now? Yeah, the Giants and the Cowboys game, because Pert played the Jets game. But Eric, as someone who's broken down the film a little bit, and by the way, guys, we're getting close to when we got to call it here tonight. We got to be a little bit tight because family plans and stuff. Both of us have little kids. So anything burning, topics, questions, supers, get them in the chat, and we will for sure get to them before we dip. But Eric, as someone who's watched the film, kind of rapid fire. Give us your thoughts on Palczewski.
He's been fine. And he's done such an admirable job that I don't want to, critique him too much, or really at all, but it's worth pointing out that he hasn't been great. There's a lot of openings with his play that fortunately the Dallas Cowboys defensive line wasn't good enough to take advantage of. And the New York Giants, probably because of how it being his first start, they weren't familiar with his game really overall, that they weren't able to take advantage of it, although there were some times. Fortunately, the Giants game, he was playing left guard like he was still playing right guard. His technique was still backwards. That was corrected to a good, decent amount against the Cowboys. So there's still some concerns with pass protection with his game, but he's been fine. I think he's really proven himself as a serviceable backup in the NFL who can play, both spots on the right side and now left guard, something that I was very questionable about because I had heard some comments that he's one of those guys that just can't flip sides. He can't flip that technique. And well, we've seen that he's starting to do that with the Cowboys game. So I think there should be enough confidence in him going forward until Ben Powers gets back of at least being a average to maybe slightly above average left guard for the Broncos.
All right. We got Nathan Johnson checking in on Super Chat. Thank you, big dog. Says showing some love. Always listen the next day, driving 16 hours from North Carolina, pardon me, to Houston with a Texans fan, making him listen on the drive down in the morning. Love the show. Well, that's really cool. A Broncos fan and a Texans fan heading from North Carolina to Houston. Could probably come up with some funny jokes in that department, but dude, that's awesome. Thank you for the Super Chat support, Nathan, and enjoy the game. I bet it's going to be a fun experience for you, big dog. So thank you very much. Okay, guys, burning questions, get them in. We're about out of time, but we don't want to ignore Peter's second point here. He says, is Jonah Ellis playing back at kind of his top level since his injury? Talking about backups, how good was Tillman? Exclamation point on that. So, Eric, what did you see from Jonah Ellis in his first game back from, was it his first or was it his second?
I believe it was his first.
Yeah, last week against the Cowboys. What did you see? And then, of course, Tillman.
It still seemed like the shoulder was bothering him a little bit. He didn't seem to quite be getting enough or as much extension or being able to use it with as much power as he was prior to it. But it was still a good game. He still has other elements that he was able to rely on and still had a pretty big impact on the game. On one of the interceptions, I believe it was a Tillman one, Ellis did a great job of applying the pressure to, force the ball out quickly. It might have been the Barron one. It was one of the two interceptions. I can't remember exactly which. So he's been doing well, and I think that it's still going to take some time to get back. Shoulders are pretty important for pass rushers. You do a lot with the shoulder and, generating movement and power from it. But it was a positive sign that his first game back, it didn't seem to be such a, game changer for him that he couldn't, perform at a high level still. And then Tillman, I have started the train of getting some offensive packages with Tillman. He made it very clear that he used to be a tight end, and you still can kind of see it a little bit when he drops back into coverage with the way he reads things and the way he moves. You can still see that he was a former offensive player. Maybe some goal line packages. I mean, we tried Garrett Bowles out as a receipt, trying to catch a touchdown. Maybe we should try Tillman up there. Not quite as big as Ricard or Matlock for the Ravens and the Chargers, but Tillman can be our smaller version of those guys.
Bumbling. I'm thinking of like Chris Berman calls on that interception. Camden, a dear member, jumping in on Super Chat saying, "What's up, Broncos country? I saw articles on offensive trade targets for the Broncos, but could there be a chance for a defensive trade to improve depth at corner or linebacker?" Eric, what do you think?
Cornerback, no. I mean, they have enough depth there, and you're going to be getting a guy who's going to be coming in as your fifth corner that's going to be moved down to your sixth once Patrick Surtain's back in 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks, depending on how long he is actually out. Linebacker, it's tough because they really like Alex Singleton out there. I think that he's been better over the last few weeks, especially with giving that protection to him from Brandon Jones. Still has a lot of those moments that are iffy. I would love to see an upgrade there, but Justin Chennaud's been playing great this season. Drake Greenlaw, granted, it's only been 20, 21 snaps. He was really good on those snaps. He was great on those snaps. I don't think that you make a play for a linebacker and either just because of that. I think if the Broncos do add anywhere, as I said earlier, it'd be tight end. Just adding another element to their offense with how beat up the tight end position is for them.
And as Chase brings up here, good point, my brother. Broncos only have a little north of $5 million in cap space currently, so they would have to work around that. Which, you know, when it comes to salary cap voodoo, if I've learned anything now in the 12 years I've been covering the NFL, where there's a will, there is absolutely always a way, even for the teams ostensibly in salary cap hell. Glenn, we haven't talked about keys, so let's get to this, and then we got to get going, guys. Glenn says, what do you think will be the key to beating the Texans on offense? My key is the run game, Dobbins, Harvey, also Bo using his legs to combat their front four. So it's kind of interesting, Eric. They have two very good and accomplished pass rushers on the edge, and yet they have, 15 sacks or something as a team. I don't have it right in front of me, but not very many. Camden, thank you for gifting the memberships, big dog. You and Lady D helping us out big time in that department tonight. So thank you, brother. Really appreciate you. But back to the keys thing for the offense, Eric. How do you see it?
Well, in the run game, I think that is a very good key to have, as much as we talk about, Nick and I especially, for how often we get called Texans fans because we absolutely praise their defense. This year, that as excellent as they've been in pass coverage, they've been middle of the pack in run defense. So there is a very big opening for the Broncos there, and it can lead the way to them being more of a ball control offense, running the ball, using that to, open up the passing game for them and just control the clock and keep it a low scoring defensive affair, trusting their defense to go out there and, make the stops that are needed. That is one of the big ones that they have. Will Anderson and Daniel Hunter are very aggressive getting upfield. That leaves those lanes open. Their best run defender is Sheldon Rankins, and he lines up against Quinn Miners. So hopefully Quinn Miners had that absolutely monster of a performance against the Dallas Cowboys. Hopefully he can build off of that. So that is a big one and for the defense, I think it's really going to come down to the corners and not in, the obvious way, getting coverage. They got to play a little bit tighter right off the snap. And Vance Joseph has to dial up the blitzes on CJ Stroud. He's one of those weird ones that he actually can do a little bit better against the blitz than not. Or, does worse against the blitz than not, because when you blitz somebody, obviously you're leaving a hole in the field. And if you create enough confusion, Stroud misses that hole, but you can't give him an opening by playing so far off with like Kramer Saber and Strain as they did against the Cowboys. So be a little bit tighter in the coverage off the snap and everything, blitz him, keep the simulated pressures up, keep the disguised looks up front, and let your pass rush do the work and carry the defense in this one, because you're going to need them a little bit more with Patrick Surtain out, because as we've talked about often, he's the straw that stirs the drink. He enables them to do so much with their coverage packages that they can do. And with him out, they can't do that anymore. So you need the defensive front guys to step up and, make up the difference.
I agree with this. First of all, Chase says, has Sternad played, Sternad, I got to get that right. That's how he wants his name. That's how he pronounces his name. I got to remember that. It's pretty easy to remember, but it's just that I've been saying it the other way for so long. Sternad, it's Sternad. But Chase, has Sternad played his way into a potential extension? Now, the Broncos in back-to-back years, Eric, have re-signed him to kind of one-year Band-Aid type of deals. And with Alex Singleton almost certainly at his age playing the final contract he'll get with the Broncos, do you see Sternad being a guy that's in the vision for this front office long-term? Because we're not going to see it this year barring injury, but I would love to see what the linebacker core would look like with a Greenlaw Sternad as the two core guys moving forward. And as where'd it go? Camden also echoes, I think Sternad could be one of our starting linebacker next year. He's been fantastic. I would agree. He's been just this short of fantastic. He's been fantastic at times, but definitely better. Like, you wanted to see steps forward. You wanted to see how last year being really his first full go as like a starter guy being relied on for most of the season. How would that serve him in terms of what did he learn? How did he improve from all that experience? And we're seeing it, Eric.
Yeah. So ever since like week 3 or 4, I've been talking about when Dre Greenlaw's back, the starting linebackers need to be Greenlaw and Sternad. That needs to be the case. The question I have is, if Vance Joseph gets a head coaching job, I would not be shocked if he makes a strong pursuit for Justin Sternad to be that, vocal piece, that leader, so to speak, help implement his defense with wherever he ends up and makes a strong pursuit for him. But I would love Denver to bring him back and extend him. I would love for them to make him a starter this year over Alex Singleton. But internally, they love Alex Singleton. He's loved in the locker room. I don't think they're not going to bench him barring injury. I'd love to see it happen. Beyond this year, I don't know, because I don't know if Van Joseph gets a head coaching job. I think that throws a major wrinkle in it. If Van Joseph is back, I wouldn't be surprised if Sternad is back, provided the market doesn't, explode again at linebacker for him, and he just ends up getting, $15 million on an average per year basis.
And it could, especially with how many big kind of splash plays he has made this season. And you know how it goes for guys, man. Like if the Philadelphia Eagles don't have as dominant a season as they do as a team, high profile wins all the way, win the Super Bowl, does Zach Bond get the level of contract he got? All I'm trying to possibly. All I'm saying is, just like we've talked about in years past when it was dark times for the Broncos and fans are going, well, why aren't we getting any of these Pro Bowl nods? And why aren't we? Well, it's because collective success trickles down, no pun intended, to individual success and accolades and contracts. And so if the Broncos, my point here is, if he continues to play well and make these big splash plays, and there's that consistency, and the Broncos go on to continue to be one of the NFL's top 4 or 5 teams, yeah, man, he's going to get paid. The Broncos, I mean, they'll have more cap space next year to play with, but at a certain point, they have to start figuring out how to budget some of those dollars to improve the offense too. I mean, they got a lot of money sunk while Bo's on the rookie deal. They got a lot of money sunk on the offensive line outside of Cortland. And really, you look at the contract for Evan Ingram, for his age, it was always a little bit concerning in his injury history, but for tight ends, it's outside the top 10. So anyway, guys, Cody Dub, we got to go. So let's grab this rapid fire, Eric. From what I've seen, CJ Stroud, and by the way, Cody Dub, hope the boy's doing well. Hope the missus is doing well. Thank you for your support and being a member, big dog. He says, from what I've seen, Stroud is really good at attacking the middle of the field. Greenlaw could have himself a hell of a game, with that being said. And also, there was a comment from Chase earlier just about how excited he is to see Greenlaw back at it. And even Greenlaw himself yesterday, he spoke for the first time since his injury. So, literally broke his silence on the 1-game suspension. And one of the things he said, with a few microphones and cameras shoved in his face in his locker, is, well, what are you focused on? Quote, just whip the Texans' butt. That's all I can think of. I've been watching them all week, close quote. So, Eric, your thoughts here for Cody, and then we'll wind her down.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a major opportunity for Dre Greenlaw. He just not in any individual matchup, so he didn't make it into my key matchup article for this week. But just using him to protect the middle of the field where CJ Stroud loves to have it, that is something that you got to work out and make sure that he's on point in, because that'll really help. We talk about Surtain being the straw that serves the drink. This is one of those games where you can use Greenlaw as that straw that can serve the drink against this Houston Texans offense, with how much Stroud likes to attack that middle of the field.
All right, guys, this has been a blast filling in for Lance here on an hour early. Dove Valley Deep Divers, they're usually about going live here in about 5 minutes. They'd be just going live, but because the holiday and the night, and both of us have little kids that want to go trick-or-treating, we went at 6 tonight. And so thank you for being with us. Ronk, great show tonight. Chad and Eric on Dove Valley Deep Divers. Go Bo Broncos. Thank you very much. And Eric, I can never remember. Well, first, let me give the shouts real quick. I got to do this. Any pod I'm on. Shout out to the great Super Chat superstars, supporters, members, helping us keep the lights on tonight. Papa Bear, the Lady D, not only throwing down a big super, but gifting memberships as well. Tucson Phil, multiple stars. Thank you, brother. Denver Luke. Peter Middleton. Let me see here. Ronk, I missed this. Ronk gifting 5 memberships. Bro, thank you. I'm sorry it took me so long to notice that, buddy. Thank you very much, big dog. We love you. Appreciate you. Nathan Johnson, enjoy that drive. As I think it was Peter mentioned, 16 hours, that would, in Great Britain, you'd go from one end of the country to the other completely, north to south, I think is what he meant. And it's kind of crazy because in the West, especially in the United States, we're used to kind of the big distances, but in the West, you go to Montana, for example, and some places in Wyoming, I mean, you're going 200 miles between towns. That's unfathomable in the old world. So it's just kind of crazy. But Nathan, thank you, buddy. Camden also throwing down super chat and some memberships for folks. And then Cody Dub. Thank you guys. Love you. Thanks for having me tonight. Eric, it's your show, so you do the sign off.
All right. So if you guys haven't done so yet, you guys can go over to youtube.com at Mile High Huddle and become one of the members where you can get access to some exclusive content. Make sure you do that. It's been well worth your money. You guys, if you are able to do so, you guys can also throw us down some super chats or stars on Facebook or YouTube. And that is ways to help us keep the lights on and keep the shows going every single week. But if you're not able to do so, as we know, times are tough, you guys can subscribe, like, or share. It's something that takes only a matter of seconds and helps us with the algorithms that are ever changing and ever being frustrating on our end on both YouTube and Facebook. You guys can also take a little bit of time and go over to Spotify or Apple Podcasts and leave a 5-star review for a chance to win some gear, not swag. I hate saying swag every single month. You guys go to Instagram at Mile High Huddle with an underscore between Mile and High and Huddle. And if you guys are able to do so, especially with the holiday season coming up, it's October 31st tomorrow. Christmas decorations go up in my household. You guys can go to mhhmerch.com to get, your friends or family who happen to be Mile High Huddle fans some gear, not swag. Again, I hate saying swag. And you guys can also follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/milehuddlepod, facebook.com/milehuddle, where you guys can be part of the wonderful and awesome Facebook community that we've built up over the last, 12 years? I can never remember how long it's been. It just has flown by. You guys can also follow us on Twitter at milehuddle, at DVDD_pod, and get access to us there and hit us up with any kinds of questions here. But that is going to do it for us tonight. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Stay safe. Don't drink and drive. And as my good friend Nick always says, choose kindness and compassion. And of course, go Broncos.